G'day folks. Well, I'm moved out and I've settled into my retirement space. Oh dear, oh dear. It's awesome. There's a bit more room in this one than on where I'm standing. I've got probably another 5 or 6 feet before I hit a wall, so we've got plenty of room now. It's bloody awesome. The young fella, my youngest son, he's got my old space now, and he's got his car in there and all his tools, and he's got a hoist going in a few months' time, which will be handy for me as well. But my son's got incredible drive, very similar to me, and he's going to have a successful business working on cars. He's very capable, incredible. In the last few years of his starting his journey, he started out working on bikes. He was working in a motorbike shop, Honda, and he was there for a couple of years and then progressed on to a mechanic shop, local mechanic business, and he's been there just over 12 months, and he's thriving. He's the head mechanic there, so very proud of him. Very proud of him. Well, guys, I got the Ute parked up. It's my HX. I've had this a long time too. Oh God, we're pushing it now. Probably 28, 29 years, something like that. It gets away time. But this is a beauty, this Ute. I used it for a lot of years with my little business, and it was a great little rig. Then I ended up buying the BT and retiring this due to an engine, well, the 253 in it had a score in the bore, and it was never any good. And it always used to just, it was always oiling up that plug, and I had issues with it. It was a standard bore with it. It broke a set of rings and scratched the bore. It was quite noticeable. I put a fresh set of rings in it and gave it a hone, but it was okay. It lasted me a few years, but always a little. One cylinder was always the fouler plug up every so often, and yeah, wouldn't use much oil, but it was a low compression 253. And I retired it and got the BT. Well, it's going to have a new lease of life now. I've got the turbo sitting in under there. I'm going to put all my engine, transmission, everything that was in the Monaro is going into this. Not everything. Obviously, I'm not going to put an oil cooler on it. I don't think there's any need. The oil out of the head scavenge system, I'm going to just leave it for now. I don't think that's necessary. Just cruising around on the streets and, having a blast here and there, I don't think it's going to warrant that. But everything else, pretty much. I'm keeping this diff that's in it now. I'm not going to bother swapping the diff out. I'm actually going to keep, well, I did say I was keeping the Monaro, so I'm going to keep the diff and everything, all the sort of the rolling suspension and everything in that Monaro, and I'm going to keep everything in this Ute. The brakes are all standard, everything's standard on it. I mean, if that diff gives me trouble in the Ute over time, I will upgrade. But just for now, I'll get it up and running. I'm going to actually take it back outside. It's disgusting underneath. It's dusty as anything. And it's just too big a job in under here to try and clean it without getting the pressure cleaner onto it. So I'm going to put back on the wheels and get it outside and jack it up like this. Leave it out for a few weeks and really get in underneath it and give it a good clean, do the engine bay, and just go right over it. Go right over it. And then I'll give it some inox or WD-40, which I've got plenty of. I bought a 5 litre container of it, and I can juice it all up underneath, and it gives us somewhere to start working on it, and it'll be a lot cleaner. But I've got the turbo sitting in under there, guys. Where that jack is pretty much where it's going to sit as far as position goes, just behind the passenger side, so it's on the left-hand side of the cab. So it's just behind the cab, under the tray. It blew my mind, actually. I've had it just sitting there for a few days, and the amount of room underneath is just phenomenal. I can run the scavenge tank underneath, the oil drain tank. I don't have to touch anything. It's actually given me, oh look, I'm so thrilled with it. I thought it'd work. I just had it in my mind, and I knew it would, but a few doubts crept in over time. Maybe it's not, but there's a ton of room under it. Now the fuel tank is on this side. You can see the filler cap there just behind the door. But it's on the other side, the turbo. So what a perfect spot. What a perfect spot. I'm going to run a resonator style or hot dog before the turbo. I had a muffler before the turbo when I had it rear mounted on the Monaro, which was behind the diff, but I had a muffler on it before the turbo. And I think that's a great way of controlling sound. I don't want this thing very loud. I want it sort of quite respectable, similar to what it was years ago with the Monaro. And then I won't need a muffler or a downpipe, or a muffler, downwind of the turbo. Hopefully I can get away with just this resonator hot dog in between. My theory is on it that because it's under pressure, any sort of, well, the muffler that was on it originally worked incredibly well. You could hear the turbo whistle up, yet it was suppressing the sound of the engine, but it still had that nice tone to it. But it was just nice and quiet, yet you could hear the turbo spool. And that's what I'm sort of wanting to achieve with this. So, exciting times ahead. Exciting times, it really is. Let's go and check it out underneath anyway, guys. I'll show you. Oh, excuse the mess. It's all dusty and dirty under here. I actually I left it out for one winter a couple of years ago, and I had a plastic tarp covered over it, but yeah, it got a little bit of surface rust on it underneath in here, so yeah, it wants a good clean. Well, there you go, guys. That's where she's going to sit, roughly, in under there. Look at the room. We've got the fuel tank here. Ugh. That sits there, which I've got to drop that out. I'm going to use that fuel tank, plumb my own fittings into it. I may have to weld in some bungs. Yes, I'm very aware that it's an explosive when you do it, so I'm going to use, apparently you can wash it out and fill them with water and do all that sort of buzz stuff, but we'll use that tank, and rather than put another fuel cell in, I want to try and keep it all sort of as is, as factory looking as possible. But what a good spot for that turbo up there. The compressor wheel, or the outlet from the compressor side, I can clock that downwards. I've got my nice big drain box there, and the height of it, get back, is, look at the height. It's actually up the same height as roughly the fuel tank. I can go up a little bit higher, but it's about the same height as the fuel tank, so height's not an issue. Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait. Oh God, it's just gonna be so good. So good. Yeah. And I can run a 4-inch downpipe, tailpipe out the back over the diff and straight out. And believe it or not, my wastegate and bend that came out of the car, which I'll show you some other time, but that's all integrated. I reckon I can use that without even having to graft in a wastegate. It's all there. This actual job's becoming very easy looking now. It's the same model as the, well, not the same model, but the same, everything's the same as the Monaro. So everything should just bolt straight up. It's pretty straightforward. It's so good. It's so good. We got a Salisbury diff there, which, I don't know, I'm not real confident in it. It's only a single spinner, but it's going to have to just do for now. I think the ratio on this was a 336, so a 3.3. The Monaro was a 3.7, but then I ended up changing it down to a 3.5 ratio. So this one will be a slightly taller, not much, but we are running the smaller wheels, so we'll run the 15s. I've got a set of 15, sorry, not 15s, 14-inch jelly bean style rim, but with a decent tyre, so they'll be a little bit lower in height compared to the old Monaro, but it'll be about the same gearing, I'm guessing. But it's going to blow the tyres, no worries whatsoever. We've got a single spot. That's the original brake, which is I think it's a 270mm rotor, and that's all sort of cast into the hub onto the stub axle, so it's all one unit. And then we've got a single piston, and they're PBR, these brakes. They're a cast aluminium caliper. The ones, and that's in the HX, and the HJ ran a steel Gerlock caliper, which is slightly better, as they say, a bit stronger. But like I said, I'm not racing this thing. The brakes are pretty good for what they are. Yeah. And I've got the power steering rack in there. We're going to use that again. So, beautiful rack. I'm actually going to run, I'm not going to run at this stage the electric power steering. I'm going to go back to the belt driven. It's just simplicity for me, keeping it simple. Don't have to wire it in. It just bolts up. I want to repaint the engine bay, clean that all out, and repaint it, just freshen it up. Yeah. I'll run the transmission cooler in the front. I'm not running an intercooler on it at the moment. I'll see how I go with the E85, but if it becomes sort of a bit of an issue, and I'm using this ute a little bit more so for you know, everyday stuff, I might switch it over to 98, and I will put my old intercooler back on it. So I've got the metering blocks for it, so it's just a matter of swapping them out, putting an intercooler on, and sort of retuning it again back onto pump fuel. But I might go back in boost if I did that, go back to around sort of £7, but I'm on £10 at the moment with no intercooler on E85, and it loves it. So for now, I think I'll just leave it on E85, like I said, unless it becomes too ridiculous in the price of it. I've got an option to go back to pump fuel. But yeah, exciting times ahead. I mean, she's an old car. She's had a lot of use. It's actually done, what have I done in it? 305,000 kilometres. I remember it had 220 on it when I acquired it. Yeah, I'd like to just tidy up that little centrepiece there. just tidy it up. Just tidy it up. I had a really nice little stereo system in it years ago. I made my own little, I had 6x9 speakers in it. And they're a real bassy little speaker. I made a nice little surround for it. Carpet's in really good nick still, as you can see there. I've looked after it, but at the same time it got used. I'd like to retint the windows. It had a sort of a faint tint on it. I'd like to retint the windows and just tidy it up. I haven't got any plans to paint it. There's a little bit of, it's got a little bit of a bit of bog missing out on the other side. I'll show you in another vid. And I think I may have to try and paint the other side. I'll take you around and show you. Yeah. But the rest of it's really good. It's really good. Yeah. It was on those rails. I had ladder racks, and I used to tie my stuff off on these rails, and the rails, you end up sort of pulling on them and it just cracked the bog. So repair that and paint it. But the rest of it's not too bad. It's not bad. There's no rust in it. It's a surprise. It's all been fish oiled inside out. It came from the Territory, Northern Territory. I bought it off my brother-in-law. And he bought it down from the Territory when he was working up there. And he didn't want it, and I bought it without an engine in it. I think I paid $2,800 for it. And I put my motor in it and used it for a lot of years. And it had been restored, but it had fish oil. It's got fish oil all through it. And underneath too. It makes it, stuff sticks to it, but it does protect it. And yeah, I've always shedded my cars ever since I've had it. So it's lasted well. It's incredible. It really is. It's got a HQ rear bumper on it too, which I'd like to get the tail lights working on it. Yeah, it's a nice old girl. I'm really attached to this thing, and I think it's going to go really nice with my little engine and gearbox combination with a bit of boost. I think it'll be fantastic. I can't wait to get it all going. All right, guys. Well, that's enough of my waffling on. Yeah. So, look, on the next video, I am going to talk about a bit more of what's going on in the globe. It's really starting to get a bit loud now. It's starting to come out on mainstream. There is information coming out now. There's a Queensland senator, I think his name's Malcolm Roberts. Go and listen to him if you're wanting to find out a bit about especially with the vaccine. That's incredible. It's terrible. It is incredible, but it's terrible at the same time. It's really terrible. But we are going through an awakening process, so you have to look at the big picture, and the big picture is we are changing consciousness. We are evolving as a species, as a human race. We're not going to stay in this low vibrational 3D energy anymore. It's crumbling. And what you're seeing now is all the turbulence, all the dark energy coming to the surface, all the craziness happening. And we're slowly transitioning into a higher vibrational way of living, which means truth. We're exposing it all now. It all has to come out. It's the only way we can transition from a low base frequency into a higher base frequency is to expose the truth. And now the truths are coming out. We need to see it, we need to deal with it, and we need to heal from it to move forward. And we're just starting now. The awakening is just starting. And it's, for me, I've been awake now for a few years. I knew about the or the scamdemic, as they call it. I knew that was a bit of a scam to get everyone into getting vaccinated. Our government aren't our friends. Guys, you need to wake up to that fact. The government aren't your friend. They've got their own interests. They don't give a stuff about humanity, and we're seeing that now. I just wish more people would stand up and talk about it a bit more openly instead of going quiet. It's really sad because it's happening now. There's no avoiding it, and we can't bury our heads in it. We have to start talking about all this and being brave. But anyway, that's what's happening, and as time goes on, I'm going to really talk about it. I think there's going to be a point in humanity where no one can sort of turn a blind eye to it, because it'll be in your face so much when truths come out, and it'll be just unbelievable. That's coming. I don't know when, but it is coming. Disclosure, they call it. So there's going to be a lot to talk about as time goes on. But it's a beautiful era if you can just sort of get your head around it. It's absolutely a beautiful time. We are blossoming into another reality based on truth, compassion, and love. And that's what humanity needs. We're heading down a destructive path. It's not sustainable what we're doing to this earth. Things need to change. So it's happening now. And I just hope you guys can just understand that. Try not to go into fear, if possible. We need to rise above, and we need to look out for one another. And as time goes on, and claim it. It's all there. We just need to claim it. All right, guys. Well, that's enough rambling on. The next vid will be, I'll probably show you when I get it outside, and I'm hoping to do it in the next few days. Take it out and start cleaning it down. And if I can have it all sort of cleaned up, and I might do a vid then. It's going to be a slow and steady trip on this. I'm not pushing myself. It's just as I've got a bit of time to spend on it. I don't care how long it takes. So the vids will be just, slow and steady, but stick with me, and you'll get to see a nice old ute come back to its former glory and have a little bit of extra poke. It'll be bloody fun. All right, guys, well, take care. I'll catch you on the next one.